Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each time we give you a different book recommendation on a specific theme. This time, we're going to be looking at adult graphic novels. So we've done young adult graphic novels, but this time we're going to show you that adults can like graphic novels as well.
Yes, and in fact, they're not just for kids or teens, and not every graphic novel has a superhero. And I think all the ones we're talking about today don't even have superheroes. And it's nice to see that sometimes, a book just lends itself better to this format.
Yeah.
And I know we tend to kind of intersperse graphic novels on other themes sometimes, and that's because they're really good books.
Really good.
Yeah. And all the books that we're going to talk about today are available online through Hoopla and some of them through Overdrive. But if you haven't checked out graphic novels on Hoopla, now's the chance, as well as here at the library in person. So, Meg, what's your first graphic novel?
My first graphic novel is one some of you may have heard of. It's called The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So this is just came out last year, actually, this graphic novel adaptation, illustrated by Morton and lettered by Fred Fordham. And I think this is a good one to start with if maybe you're not too, familiar with reading graphic novels, because maybe it's a story some of our viewers are familiar with already. So it's really cool to see how art enhances the story. The art style is very clean and classic, what you would think of when you think of the 1920s, which is when the book takes place, that jazz age, all the flappers and all of that. So I really like Aya's art in this. She has beautiful, like, muted light colors, and it is really a gorgeous book to look at. And then just to pair that with the story just enhances it further. So I will talk about the story just a little bit in case someone doesn't know too much about it. Anyway, our narrator obviously is Nick, and he's a World War I veteran, and he's moving to Long Island, the village of West Egg in Long Island. And pretty much the book centers around all the people he brushes up with in this little village in Long Island. So there's the beautiful Daisy Buchanan and her husband Tom. There's the mysterious, enigmatic Jay Gatsby, who hosts these huge, elaborate parties, but he's just not there for some reason. No one ever sees him partaking in the party. So there's all these characters that Nick comes in contact with. And pretty much as the story goes on, he realizes all of the different connections all of these characters have with each other. And underneath the veneer of all the parties and the glam, it's really a story of regret and desire and ambition. So it's got a lot of depth to it underneath all that elegance on the surface. So it's really well rendered, this version. I would highly recommend it just to see the beautiful artwork. I also like the art Aya Morton does on the faces. She's really good at capturing the subtle changes and emotions in the faces. So it's really cool to see how she rendered it, and go Great Gatsby.
I mean, I think Gatsby's a classic and it's been made into film so many times, it makes sense that it's gone into a graphic novel form, and I'm interested to see how they've adapted it in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my first graphic novel is called Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. And Emily Carroll is just like a master at introducing like creepy elements with her art and her stories. And this book does just that. It is a collection of 5 scary stories. So each one is told in a sort of different manner, but all are dealing with that infinitely scary element, the woods. And one story features a young woman who has traveled through the woods to go live with her new husband. Every night, she hears a strange voice coming to her from inside the house, until one night her husband has left her on a hunting trip. And while he's gone, she begins tearing apart the house to try to find this voice. And she does.
Oh, wow.
And then another story tells of 3 girls who were left home while their father went off. And they're alone in their house on the edge of the woods, and their father has told them that after 3 days, if he has not returned, they need to go to the neighbor's house. But after 3 days, they don't. And after 3 days, a stranger comes knocking.
Okay. Oh
I
man,
know.
you
Am
got
I giving you those little creepy
yeah,
chills?
you yeah,
Yeah.
giving me.
So Emily Carroll's work gives you these creepy chills throughout. And the stories are sort of reminiscent of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Schwartz, in
Okay.
that they kind of feel almost familiar,
Yeah.
like fairy tale esque, but definitely darker. And it is just like a really creepy read. And I have read this one before and I reread it just recently. And even then, I'm like, I know what's going to happen, but it still freaks me out. And each story is different.
Yeah.
So I thought this was a really good graphic novel to recommend for adults who aren't super comfortable with the format, because it lends itself very well to this format.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's 5 stories in one book helps you kind of like dive in and out if you wanted to, but you're not going to want to. You're going to just have to keep reading.
Oh man, those sound great. And I really like the idea of like horror or scary stories in a graphic novel because I mean, you think of movies and how they build suspense. I just
Exactly. Some things are visual.
yeah, the visual aspect of it, that's really fascinating to me. I think that sounds really cool. So my next one is The Golden Age by Roxanne Moreil and Cyril Pedrosa. And this is the land of medieval times. So it fans reminiscent of Camelot and Game of Thrones. The artwork is just jaw-dropping in this book. And I was actually kind of amazed when I was going through it. So it's about Princess Tilda, and she lives in the kingdom of Lantrevers. Now, this place is very hard for a lot of people. There's a lot of suffering. And pretty much the only people who don't suffer in this kingdom are the elite and the rulers. Well, Princess Tilda has this dream and desire to change that and make things better for the common folk. And she's about to be crowned the queen. She's the rightful heir of her father, King Ronan, who's recently passed. And it's the night before the coronation. And her younger brother, and a few of his allies usurped the throne and actually banished Princess Tilda away. So, like, she's about to become this queen, and it's taken away from her, and she's actually outcast now. Her only 2 friends, Tancred and Viril, are with her, and she's going to have to try and find a way to get her rightful place in the kingdom. So while she's doing this, she travels from pretty much little village to village incognito, so the common folk don't realize who she is. And so she kind of builds this connection with her subjects in a way. And she starts to hear about this mysterious golden age that the town used to live in, the village. And so she kind of wants to figure out the secret of this golden age where people were free and why this happened and what happened to make it go bad. So there's kind of a mysterious element to it as well. And the artwork as the story is told just blows you away. It's kind of reminds me of a mix between, it almost looked like Disney art, which is really impressive for graphic novels because that how much art goes into that, but it's not cartoony. It's not cartoony, but it's beautiful. The shading and the shadows is really colorful as well. But if anyone who likes Sleeping Beauty, classic grim fairy tales, anything like that, I think would absolutely love this book.
Yes, and I mean, I think it sounds like in this age right now where we've had all the like the Game of Thrones and The Witcher and like series like that have had a lot of success. I think a graphic novel like this falls right in line with it.
Absolutely.
All right, my last one is more of a traditional comic series.
Okay.
This is Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. And this is up to 54 issues, but it's been on hiatus since 2018, and I don't know if it's coming back or not. And these 54 issues have been broken up into 9 volumes.
Okay.
The premise of the story circles a lot of different characters, but the central characters are Alana and Marco, and their love story is very Romeo and Juliet. but with horns and wings instead of Montagues and Capulets.
Right.
Marco is from a planet where all of the people have horns. Well, actually, it's a moon of a planet, technicality. And Alana is from a planet where they all have wings. And their planets have been at war as long as anyone remembers. And the two meet in the midst of this war when Marco is taken prisoner and Alana is one of his prison guards. And she finds out that he's about to be transferred to this really notorious, terrible prison where nobody ever comes back from. And she just can't stand to see him go, so she helps him escape. And the two are on the run. And they have a lot of people after them, especially after the two have a baby, Hazel, who has horns and wings, and by her existence is basically illegal. Yes. And the series is just, it's a crazy ride.
Yeah.
Lots of ups and downs and really off the wall characters, especially when you're thinking about the fact that they're imagining this in space where all these different planets. So there's one character who is like a spider, and there's another character who is a talking animal, and it just continues from there. And the creators of this comic do a great job of getting you invested in all of these different storylines that connect over time. And it follows a lot of characters who are chasing after Marco, Alana, and Hazel, as well as additional characters who are helping them and become friends and family to them. And I will warn you that this is an adult graphic novel series. This is comics for adults. So there is swearing and violence and sexual content. However, it is just an amazing, intricate series that sucks you right in.
Yeah, I have not actually read that yet, but whenever I've like looked through it, and the creativity of the
Oh,
world
yeah.
building just seems so impressive. And I didn't realize it was so Romeo and Juliet. That is so cute. I
I
really
mean,
might have
that's where you start off. From there, it builds into different storylines,
Oh
but that's kind
yeah,
of central.
that's really cool. I love it. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I hope you got some good recommendations. If you haven't tried graphic novels before, I hope you do, because they're a really fun way to read stories and explore like a lot of stories. So thank you guys, and I hope you guys join us next time. And
Yes, check out some of these graphic novels and see the amazing artwork and how it enhances the stories that are told in these books. So, happy reading!
mm.